Should be. Hi, am I live? I hope so. So we're just sort of firing up everything right now so that we can make sure the tech is working, all the technology is working, making sure that I have the camera set up correctly so that you can read the labels. So as an introduction real quick before we start tasting and I start talking, my name is Ron. This is Lorene. This is my lovely wife and the boss. We really appreciate everybody joining us tonight for this first ever Facebook Live tasting, and we're really excited about it. We're also really excited about to get your feedback to see what we should be doing next. I want to make sure everybody can hear me, so if somebody can just shout out that you are able to hear us, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. And then we will get started on the tasting. Times I got like 2 minutes I got to stall, so I'm just going to sit here and drink. Hopefully that's okay. Hey Tim, tell me if you can hear me.
Kelly Coleman's watching too.
Yep, I can see everybody who's watching.
Okay. When I went to comment, it came up as you again, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Perfect, you can hear me. I appreciate that. Thanks, Art. All right, so couple more minutes and then we're going to start drinking. I hope that you have your tasting area set up. You can have 3 glasses. I have 3 glasses just so it's easier for me to transition from one wine to the other. You're at home, so you can just do whatever you want to do. Hopefully you've already started drinking and enjoying the evening thus far. I've got my 3 glasses set up. I've got my Chardonnay, my Pinot Noir, and my Cabernet, and that's the order that we're going to taste them. So Chard, Pinot, Cab. I've got my text sheets here, and I've got some other notes on them, but I didn't memorize a whole lot about the wine specifically, so I'm just going to read off the text sheets a little bit and talk about some of the things that it means, the things on the tasting sheet, and what they mean in the bottle of wine. What time do we have here? About 7 o'clock. All right. So again, time to taste. We've got 3 wines. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the wines specifically, and then a little bit about regional stuff, and a little bit about winemaking in general, if there's something on the text sheet that talks about winemaking. And if anybody has any questions, I want you to chime in, jot the question down. If I miss it, we've got a couple people here monitoring the page, and I'll be able to answer the questions. I might have to put my glasses on and be able to read the small writing on my phone, but we'll figure that out. So I'm going to do a super fast, knowing that a lot of you are really familiar with how to taste wine. A lot of you are really familiar, or hopefully most of you are familiar with how to drink wine, but we're going to talk about tasting, like super fast. Biggest thing is you want to use all of your senses. So sense of sight, when you look at a wine, you want to evaluate it, hold it about a 45-degree angle over something light colored, look at the color, look at the clarity. All those things can eventually tell you something about the wine. And I'm not going to go into all those different things. We might talk about it if something pops on any of these as far as the appearance. But it's a really nice thing to sort of look at the wine, the brilliance of it, the color, the depth, maybe how light it is or how deep or dark it is. Next thing is you want to swirl the wine. All you're doing when you swirl the wine is letting that wine open up, letting all the aromas collect into the glass. Next thing is you want to smell the wine. When you smell the wine, don't be shy. Stick your nose right into the glass. At the bottom of the glass, at the top of the glass, and all around the opening of the glass, and really enjoy the wine. Smell it and smell it and smell it and smell it. Oftentimes, smelling the wine is much as enjoyable as the actual taste of the wine. When you get to tasting the wine, sip the wine, just a little bit of it, and let it roll over your tongue, over your mouth, hold it in your mouth, let it warm up, more aromas come out. And this is the thing that I want you to practice. And I know a lot of people already do it, but some people might not. You want to slurp the wine. When I say slurp the wine, I mean trill the wine. A little bit of wine in your mouth, tip your head forward, and draw air across the wine while it's still in your mouth, as though you're slurping soup off of a spoon. When you do that, you draw that air across the wine up in your retronasal passages, and you engage your sense of smell with your sense of taste. When we talk about flavor in anything, it's about 75% what you smell and 25% what you taste, what your taste buds are doing. The other thing that was really, really important in wine is the structure of the wine. If you ever read anything about wine, especially if you read anything that I've written or when I talk about it, I talk about mouthfeel. I talk about the sensations, the sense of touch in your mouth. So high acid wines, how zippy they are, how they're mouth-watering, luxurious tannins or soft tannins or really harsh, rough tannins. All of those things are your sense of touch. And so you really want to pay attention to that. So let's go ahead and move on to the first wine. And I'm going to taste through it. And I'm going to talk about what I smell, what I taste. But if you guys smell something, taste something, think something, I want you to throw it out there. So the first wine is the Irony Chardonnay. It's the 2016. You guys all have this bottle from Monterey. So Monterey County is located in the Central Coast. So Central Coast of California is located from the just south of the San Francisco Bay Area with Alameda County and Santa Cruz County, south all the way to Santa Barbara. And Monterey County sits right in the middle. It's like one of the biggest counties in Central Coast. This wine is from Delicato Vineyards, and I'm just looking at the tasting or the text sheet. And these text sheets, just as a side note, if you ever go to a wine website, a winery website, and you're looking to get information about the wines, scroll all the way to the bottom, and this is sort of like the insider trader thing. There's usually like a trade link or something where you can click on it and find more technical information about the wine, because oftentimes the websites, it's just all fluff and fancy. It's just a description of the wine. But if you go to the text sheet thing in the trade section, most of them you don't need a login, and you can really check out a lot of the different stuff. So this is Chardonnay, 100% Chardonnay. This text sheet is very generic. It talks about sort of the irony range of wines, so just that level of wines. It doesn't really talk specifically about this. However, I'm going to point you to the wine area down here, the wine paragraph where it talks just a little bit about the characteristics. And the thing that struck me was where it says hints of toasty oak. So that tells you, number one, it's got a little bit of oak aging. This text sheet doesn't tell us exactly how much. And then it says something about creamy. Something about a creamy mouthfeel. And so what that tells me is that Chardonnay probably went through a little bit of malolactic fermentation. So Chardonnay is a grape. You should be swirling your wine. You're probably already drinking it because I'm long-winded and Lorene's going to start to flag me, tell me to hurry up here. But Chardonnay as a grape is really susceptible to winemaking techniques. So the grape itself is a little nondescript. But that's why when you read stuff about it, you can really tell a lot what it's going to taste like. So oak aging is very, very important in Chardonnay. Heavy oak or the lack thereof in stainless steel. Stainless steel age, which I think this one has a little bit of stainless steel, has more of a crispness, a little bit more high acidity, and not that oak characteristic. When it's got aged in oak, you're going to have more of the oaky vanilla characteristics. On the far bottom thing, it says small portion of American and French oak barrels. Majority was aged in stainless steel. So this is sort of a blend. So it gives you a little bit of both of those characteristics. The second thing you see in Chardonnay a lot is a thing called malolactic fermentation. And that's a process where the malic acid in the grapes converts to lactic acid in the grapes. Malic acid is the acid like in apples. It's a very crisp, tart acid. Lactic acid is the acid in milk. And therefore it's a rounder, smoother acid. So when it goes through malolactic fermentation, you start to get buttery characteristics. There's a chemical called diacetyl that changes, that adds those dairy notes. In fact, as an odd, weird thing, if you get yourself some like butter spray, like for popcorn, fake butter spray, that butter characteristic comes from diacetyl. So they add that to the spray to give you the buttery dairy characteristics in that spray. So when you get that, you get a softer mouthfeel with the malolactic fermentation, and then you also get a little bit of that buttery characteristics. All right, Lorene's telling me to taste. So, what do we smell here? You want to come in and taste? Come in and taste. Lorene has much better nose than I do, so she's going to chime in here. So I get a creamy, pithy, maybe a little lime, but also a lot of stone fruit, pear. And yes, it's weird that I smell pith, or that there's like a pithy characteristic to the nose, but sense of smell is not anything specific. It's really about what it means to you. You're never wrong. So you could say you smell whatever in here, and you're not wrong.
Cream corn, which actually is something I regularly get out of Chardonnays from California. Oh,
You can move
sorry.
it a little bit. So cream corn. So that creamy characteristic is maybe a little bit of the mouthfeel characteristics, also the aromas. Just like if you open a can of cream corn, she gets that in Chardonnays a lot.
California Chardonnay.
So that's a trillion. If you can hear me slurping, that's a trillion. Angela's getting a lot of stone fruit. I agree, a lot of stone fruit. Hey, Nate, how's it going? A lot of stone fruit. The acid. So where you want to think about acid, when you swallow, if your mouth waters a lot, that's from the acidity in the wine. And acid is very, very important. And we're going to get to that in the other ones as well. It's not as prevalent. You don't get it as much in red wine, but it's very important and very prevalent. Lorene made the comment about California Chardonnay. So when we look at Chardonnay in general as a cool climate grape, so the most famous regions for it tend to be a little bit cooler climate, cooler versus hot. And so if you think about Napa Valley, the southern portion of Napa Valley is very cool because it's close to the bay. The northern portion is very hot. I'm going to talk about that when we start talking about the Knights Valley as well. Central Coast in general is very cool. Just because you got the ocean influences, a lot of breezes, and so it's cool. So they grow a lot of Pinot Noir and a lot of Chardonnay. This one is exactly that. If you went to cooler climates, you get a lot more stone fruit. If you go to warmer climates, you get more melon because the grapes are riper, and so they present just a little bit rounder and softer and bigger fruit. All right. A lot of stone fruit. What's that? Oh. Lorene says I'm sweating. So I'm going to have to wipe off. It's all the studio lights in our house. Good? All right. Sorry about that. This is really casual. You know, we're in our house, you're in your house, and we're just hanging out drinking. The finish on this, I really get that sense of pear and pineapple. Tim's getting pear and pineapple. I agree. That stone fruit. The pineapple is that little bit more tropical characteristic that you'll get out of California, slightly warmer. And the finish, I really get that pith and just a little bit of that hint of the oak aging throughout.
Little petrol.
And Lorene says a little petrol. Kelly says barely noticed. Are you talking about my sweat? Probably, right, Kelly? Thanks. All right. So I really like this wine. I think this wine is great. It's not super high acid. It's not super polarizing. It's also not super over oaked, which is one of those things that people are really shied away from in California Chardonnay, where they just thought, oh, it's way too much oak, just crazy oak kind of thing. And so I think this is really nice, middle of the road, very drinkable. As everybody here knows, it's $13 a bottle. I think that's a great value. So, all right, she's pointing to the clock. Next wine. And if anybody else has any thoughts or questions, absolutely, definitely ask away. So the next one is, and she just took the bottle away, so I can't show you, but you guys have it, obviously, is the Gavilan Pinot Noir. All right. Gavilan Pinot Noir. So Gavilan is from the Chalone Vineyards. There it is. Chalone is the winery. Gavilan is their series of wines. So Chalone, so this is also Central Coast. This is, and I'll get some more information here, from the Chalone AVA. So an AVA is American Viticultural Area. Melissa says I should take my time, that you guys literally have nothing to do. I understand that. But you don't have to sit there and drink with me the whole time, right? Social distancing, absolutely. So Chalone, I'll go back to the AVA. AVA stands for American Viticultural Area, and it is a geographical designation of an area that has uniqueness to it that makes it so that it can be a named place. So when we look at Napa Valley as an AVA, but then within Napa Valley there's Carneros and Stags Leap and Calistoga and Rutherford and a bunch of other ones. So those names are all geographically delineated. Chalone is the same thing. And now is Chalone an AVA, but it's Chalone Vineyards, and it's the only winery located in the Chalone AVA. Then they make the Gavilan series of wines, and Gavilan is named for the Gavilan mountain range. So Chalone, if you looked at a map and you looked at it, and you see sort of the whole central coast of the county, Gavilan is way over on the east side of the valley. So it's really far away from the ocean. However, the vineyards are about 1,800 feet above sea level. And so what those really high vineyards do is it gives you a really steep diurnal temperature swing from day to night. And the temperatures there during the day can sometimes get up to 80, 90 degrees. And at night, they make it down to 50 degrees. So you're having maybe a 30, 40, 50 degree temperature swing from day to night. And that adds a lot of characteristics to the grapes. Drives the acid really high at night when it cools off like that, which is really good. And it lets the grapes and the vines rest at night rather than always having to pump out a lot of stuff for nutrients of the grapes. So this one is, Wine Spectator rated this wine 90 points and said that it was a best buy. Wine Enthusiast also rated this 90 points. If you're not familiar with points, generally a scale of 0 to 100, but really you don't see anything below about 75. And it's just one person's opinion on what they think of the wine. But that person typically tastes thousands of wines a year. And so you should sort of trust them and think that it probably represents well. Find somebody that you know, that you like, that rates wines that you agree with. This one was aged for 9 months in French and Hungarian oak, with a portion of them new. And again, I'm just looking at the wine data on the text sheet. We're already smelling it. Absolutely, I think you're right, Kelly. Licorice. So go ahead and smell it. Lorraine's going to smell off camera, I think. So it's got some licorice. So one of the things you want to look at, so when you examine this one, it's 2013. So if you look at it, it's starting to go a little bit garnet. It's starting to go a little bit of that sort of burnt orange, brick red color. And with that, that is just from the age of the wine and the oxidative characteristic that takes part in the bottle. And that's really, really nice to see. It gives you better characteristics. Black cherry. Melissa's getting black cherry. What's it?
Matchstick.
Lorraine's getting matchstick. So if you're getting matchstick out of it, that might be like a little sulfur compound that's left over from the wine, from the winemaking. What helps, if you ever get something that's sort of weird in a wine like that, is just spend about 5 minutes just swirling and swirling and swirling. Lots of times that matchstick or some of those sulfur characteristics will burn off and go away. And in 10 minutes of the glass just sitting there, you won't smell them, you won't think anything of them. We're getting somebody that's got black cherry. I'm almost getting a sour cherry, almost rhubarb characteristic, especially like way over on the side of the glass.
Mushroom. Well, I think you should talk more about sports.
About points?
Yes, because there's no sports.
Oh. So there's a couple of people on here who are like super sports fanny. So just for Bart and Melissa, I probably should talk about points and maybe like how one wine beat the other wine or something. So I apologize, Melissa, that you have to spend time with Bart and not be able to watch sports. But so be it. So a little bit of mushroom, a little bit of forest floor. So Pinot Noir is a grape. Grows all over the world. The famous places are Burgundy, Willamette Valley, Central Coast, where this one is from, other parts in California, Napa, and a lot of different places. I will give you my sort of 10-second version of the way that those Pinot Noirs differ. Burgundy, France, they tend to be a lot lower alcohol and more forest floor, mushroom, dark, earthy, terroir-driven wines. I think that California tend to be brighter fruit and fruit characteristics, fruit-driven. And to me, Oregon sort of falls in between them. They tend to be a little bit heavier, darker, deep. They've got good fruit, yet they also have that sort of earthy characteristic. And I will tell you that when you look at Pinot Noir, you should see that it's light colored. And I'm not going to name names, but there's some Pinot Noirs on the market that get stuff added to them to make them big and powerful and plump, and something that Pinot Noir as a grape is not. They will blend Petite Syrah, other things. There's a thing called Mega Purple, and no, it's not like a rock band from the 70s. That's Deep Purple. Very similar, I guess, sort of, but it's called Mega Purple. If you want to know more about it, just like Google it. It's a weird additive just to sort of pump up wines. This one is light. It's delicate. It's got a great nose. The more I swirl it, the more it opens up.
Talk about Mega Purple more.
So Mega Purple, they did Smoke on the Water. Smoke on the Water, a great song. It's the only one I can play on the piano. It's da, da, da. Oh no, that's Deep Purple. Sorry. Mega Purple is an additive. Lorene wants me to talk about Mega Purple. Mega Purple is an additive that is derived from grapes, and it's basically, I won't say boiled down, but it's really super concentrated. It's like a absolute grape concentrate, and they add it to wine to give you a more powerful mouthfeel, to give you a deeper, darker color, and a little bit of a preservative kind of thing.
Would Lorene's mother like it?
No, Lorene's mother would not like it. Oh, no, not sweet enough.
Concentrate.
Yes, the concentrate is yucky. And they only add a very little bit, but it really adds to the characteristics of the wine. And the unfortunate thing is that those wines are drinkable, they're approachable. A lot of people like that wine and like that style, so there's more wines flooding the market from a trade standpoint that don't, in my opinion, and in a lot of opinions of a lot of people, don't represent the varietal. And Pinot Noir is one of those things that should be delicate, should be light, should be bright, should be high acid. Fabulous food wines. Let me see if there's something else on the tasting sheet or on the text sheet that I should talk about. So this is interesting, and I'll point it out because this is one of the things that I don't always like about text sheets. Down on the bottom it says ageability 2014 to 2019. Well, here we are in 2020. This wine still has life in it. It is bright. It is enjoyable. It's not flabby. It's not fallen off. It's got good acid. The tannin is still present. Eric asks, is there a way to tell if a wine has Mega Purple? It won't be on the label. You'd have to probably taste the wine and see. Nobody's ever going to admit on a label or on a text sheet that they add Mega Purple to the wine.
Is it a bad thing?
Is it a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. It just changes the characteristic of the wine. And in some wines, I think it's appropriate. Perhaps at a price point, it makes them a little bit, shall I say, bigger, palatable. It adds like a quote unquote complexity to the wine. So it's not a bad thing, but no, you're not going to be able to figure it out unless, of course, Eric, if you trap me in the store sometime or come and see Sarah, and we'll explain maybe some of the wines. But I'm not going to name names. Okay.
Ellie wants to, even though she wants to be not flabby.
Okay. Well,
You can't say anything.
Don't touch
I can't say anything. Kelly, number one, you're not flabby. Number two, you're going to be shut in, so do yoga. You sent the link to Lorene for yoga. Do yoga. We should do FaceTime yoga, maybe after we drink a lot. How about that? No.
need to see that.
Let me see. Anything else on here that we should talk about? No, I think that this is earthy. It's a little licorice somebody already talked about.
Maybe.
Meaty. Lorene's getting meat. So in some wines it's more so, they'll present with a little bit of meat characteristic or maybe a bacony characteristic. I don't get that in this wine, but Lorene's hypersensitive to that. And
Savory too.
savory.
Like meat savory, not necessarily smoked.
Okay, so she says it's meat savory, not smoked. And savory, so savory is an interesting characteristic in wine. And when we think about savory, we think about sauces, we think about Asian food, and the characteristic of umami. So if you're a foodie, you think about umami, and it gives you that sort of savory sensation of soy sauce kind of thing. And Pinot Noir can have that a little bit, and so maybe that's what she's picking up on. And it's certainly not that exact thing, but it's that characteristic. And that's the beautiful thing about wine. It can bring so much stuff to it. The complexity is just incredible. So I'm just going to sit here and drink this because I love Pinot. You want to talk about the next one? So in the comments, tell me what you think of this wine. The mouthfeel, they say only 2019. That's ridiculous. This wine has a good couple years to go. The structure, the acid, the fruit is still there. It's not falling off. I really like this wine. But if you know who I am, you know that I love Pinot Noir. So
I would not go 2 more years. I would drink it now.
Lorene would not go 2 more years. But unlike her men, she likes her wine young. Literally, and that's the thing. When we talk about aging wine, we really talk about drinking wine when you enjoy it. Because if you don't like old wines, you don't like the characteristics of a wine that's been in the bottle for 5, 6, 10, 15 years, because it starts to really, really change. Yep, we're getting vanilla. We're getting... it pairs well with Cheetos. I agree. But if you don't like old wines, you should drink your wines younger. And don't wait on a wine. If you've got those special bottles, don't wait on opening a bottle. Make opening the bottle a special occasion. Don't wait for the special occasion to do it. Hey, Liz, how's it going? All right, so I'm going to move on to the third and final wine. And this is the Cab. And I'm doing all right. I thought about a half hour. So this is the Beringer Knights Valley Cabernet. So 2016, this is, I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit young, but we're going to find out. If you look at this, the color, compared to the Pinot Noir, you can see that this one's much deeper, darker, more opaque. With this, this is sort of the way that Pinot Noir should compare to Cabernets. So Eric, going back to your question, if you get a Pinot Noir and it's this dark, it might contain mega purple. Just saying. So Pinot Noir should be light colored. Cabernet is like one of the 4 most tannic grapes in the world, along with Syrah, Nebbiolo, and Tannat. So it's going to be tannic. It's going to be big mouthfeel. It's going to dry your mouth out, and that characteristic is from the tannin in the wine. If we look at this wine, the text sheet, it's got 94 points from James Suckling. It's got 92 points from Wine Spectator. It's got 91 points from Jeb Dunnick. And somebody's coming to take my bottle. The Knights Valley AVA, so this is in Sonoma County, but Knights Valley is an AVA. I talked about AVAs before. So as an American viticulture, Knights Valley is sort of another geographically designated area. And Knights Valley is very far east in Sonoma. So if you looked at Napa, and it's going to be backwards to you and me, but if you look at Napa, Napa's sort of small and short, and Sonoma is really big and sort of comes up over the northern portion of Napa. And Knights Valley sits right at the top of Napa Valley, just north of Calistoga. It's the hottest AVA in Sonoma County. So when they grow Cabernet, they're growing it perhaps riper than some of the other AVAs in Sonoma. Much warmer. It's really protected by the ocean from a couple of mountain ranges. It's right sort of settled in and amongst the Mayacamas mountain range, which is the mountain range that's on the west side of Napa Valley, right up there at the northern part. So if you are familiar with Sonoma County Cabernets, the other big place where they do them is from Alexander Valley. And Alexander Valley is a little bit cooler than Knights Valley. And so the grapes come out different, the wines come out different. Let's see, what else about this one? The other thing I want to point out is that this wine is not 100% Cabernet. So when it says Cabernet on the label, California, it's only going to be 75% of that varietal. Smells old world. I don't know, Jesse. We'll get around to that. It might be. The composition of this one is 88% Cabernet Sauvignon, 5% Merlot, 5% Cabernet Franc, and 2% Petit Verdot. So what we're looking at here, even though it says Cabernet on the label, this is a red blend, and this is a Bordeaux-style blend. Yeah, we love this winery too. It's a great winery. And we were actually fortunate enough to have the assistant winemaker, Ryan Retsch. Well, I'm not going to diss on Mark Beringer. I mean, he's listed as the winemaker, so I think if Mark wants to say he's the winemaker, he's the winemaker, and Ryan's his assistant. But Ryan was in the shop. We had a fantastic time and a visit with him, and then we did a great tasting with him. We didn't do the tasting, but Basil hosted the tasting. So you know your local places are representing with wine, right? So this one was aged for 16 months in French oak with 30% new. I'm going to talk a little bit about oak, and you guys keep drinking, so just enjoy. When we talk about oak, the big ones are American and French. The difference between the two of them is primarily the climate of where the trees are growing. French oak is grown in a cooler climate, so the trees grow much slower, and so the rings of the tree are tighter, the grain is tighter. So therefore, when you put wine in it, it doesn't impart as much characteristic to the grapes or to the wine. American oak, warmer climate, it grows faster, so the grain of the trees is a little bit rougher, a little bit wider, and so when you put wine in it, it imparts even more to the characteristics of the wine. So this is French oak, 30% new. Newer oak will give more characteristic. Older oak gives less characteristic. So I'm going to swirl and smell. Dark fruit. A lot of dark fruit. I'm getting a little bit of spice characteristic out of it, like herbal. Green. Oh, all right. So somebody here said green pepper. And I'm going to talk about that as soon as I drink.
Musty basement is pleasing but rustic taste.
Mm.
I have a cork bottle.
Yeah. So you said you. If you're getting musty basement off of this, you might have a corked bottle. If you like it, you can drink it. But I'm guessing just based on that description, it's probably corked. So quick lesson on cork taint. Cork taint, or TCA as it's called, comes from a chemical process that happens in the corks. When they put the cork in the bottle, it spoils the bottle of wine, and it gives you a characteristic of like grandma's closet, wet cardboard, wet paper, musty basement. No flavor, like no good fruit characteristics. And what I'm getting out of this wine, if you're getting musty basement, it's probably corked. So you can put the cork in it, bring it to the shop. We'll take a look at it. If it's corked, you'll get a new bottle. If it's cork taint, we'll do that for you. I'm sorry about that. It's not our fault. It's not really anybody's fault. It happens. So apologize. All right. Little what?
Heaty, like makes me think alcohol.
Ah.
Slightly unbalanced, probably because it's.
I was going to talk about what? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So green pepper. So somebody here said that it was green pepper characteristic. So when we look at Cabernet and where it's grown in the world, the really famous regions are Bordeaux, of course, in France, and Napa. And for some reason, when I drink especially, Cabernet from slightly cooler climate regions. And Sonoma, I would put generally in that characteristics, but I get it more from Alexander Valley. This one, I don't get a lot of it, but that cooler climate and the way that it's made will oftentimes impart a little bit of underripe characteristic, which comes out as green characteristic, like a green pepper, stemmy characteristics. Sometimes it's winemaking, sometimes it's ripeness of the fruit. And that's one big reason why, personally, I'm not usually a fan of Alexander Valley Cabernets, because they give you that sort of green pepper characteristic. There's nothing wrong with them. It's a preferential thing. And wine is, like 100% preferential. If you don't like something and somebody else does, neither of you is wrong. So just keep that in mind. I do not get I don't get much green pepper or green character or stemmy off of this wine. A lot of dark fruit, herbs.
I agree. There's a little. I would call it stemmy. But I know
More
you're.
on the nose of the palate.
Yes, I agree. I would call it stemmy.
Angie and Chris are both getting like copper tone or coconut.
Like blood.
No.
Copper tone.
All right, so we've got a couple of people who are getting sunscreen or a coconut. My guess is that's from the oak. So that vanilla, coconut or is a huge thing out of American oak. This is French oak. What's that?
Or their lotion.
Oh, yeah, or the lotion on your hand, right?
Wash your hands.
My pore is bigger than yours?
Better.
Oh, better. Yeah. If you're smelling something weird, make sure it's not your hands or your cologne. But also, those characteristics, that sort of creamy, that oak, that coconut, that vanilla, those characteristics can come from the oak aging.
I said I got cask room.
And Lorene's getting cask room out of this. So when she says cask room, she means basically an oak characteristic as well as a sense of fermentation overall. If you've ever been to a winery and you walk into the cask room, you get this overwhelming. There's like maybe 100 barrels sitting in the room, and you get, what's Kelly saying? Mike thought it was somewhat hot for a cab. All right,
I said it was hot too.
yeah, we'll talk about that. Lorene mentioned that too. But cask room is that overall sense of sort of the barrels sitting there with the oak, and then that fermentation aroma and the evaporation. It's more of a winery sensation, and you get it out of some wines.
Lisa, she said we like your comments. We want to see your face. Go say hi.
I'll say hi. So I will talk about the alcohol, and I actually think it's a little hot too. But I think that it's young, and that Ron mentioned earlier that this is something that is probably a little young. And alcohol, I believe, is one of those things that as it ages, it becomes less apparent. And so I think it's just young. I like alcohol. Everybody who knows me knows I like alcohol. So I really enjoy it, but I think it's slightly unbalanced right now, but I think that'll age out. Your turn.
The joke I always use is she's a huffer from way back. So to talk about alcohol, when somebody says a wine is hot, like Lorene said it's hot, and Mike said it was hot, somebody's getting pencil shaving. I want to talk about that because that's great. Awesome. That pencil shaving, that graphite characteristic, that's a great pickup. And I get that a little bit. I really, if you're a Bordeaux fan, I really get that in Bordeaux. But that's a great pickup. So when we talk about alcohol and alcohol content versus how it presents in the wine, those are two different things. So the Knights Valley is 14.8% alcohol. So it's not super high as far as an alcohol. I mean, it's pretty high, but we've seen, cabs and zins, and Lorene and I had a Chardonnay years ago that was 15.5%. But when you drank it, it was completely balanced. And that's really the big thing, is if that alcohol is balanced. Where I get the heat on this is in the finish. So like after I swallow, and I breathe out, I exhale through my nose and my mouth at the same time, that's where I get that slight sensation of heat, which is really interesting. It's on the finish. It's sort of lingering after I swallow in just sort of the aromas, the air, the vapors of the wine. Graphite. So if you smell this, that graphite characteristic, I think, is the French oak for sure. Maybe a little bit of the terroir, but a lot of the French oak. And I get that graphite characteristic. And when we say graphite, if you can't sort of wrap your mind around graphite, when you were a kid and you licked a number 2 pencil, that's what we're talking about. Like, okay, when you lick it, my tongue, all purple. See, now I wish I could see you, because I'd tell you all to stick out your tongues and see how purple your tongues are. But that characteristic of licking a number 2 pencil where you get the wood and the lead, which really wasn't lead, wasn't it something else? Otherwise, most of us would be like deformed. It was graphite, yeah. I always called it lead, though. That was dumb, right? So yeah, that number 2 pencil, that graphite oak characteristic.
So what was I saying before we're done? No, I want to ask you. Why are we talking about this one so much?
Yeah. So the tannin in this wine, I'm going to talk about the tannin. When you swallow and your mouth dries out, and then you rub your tongue along the roof of your mouth, and you feel that sort of a rough characteristic, when you get that rough characteristic, that's the tannin in the wine. Tannin comes from the skins and the seeds and other things. And it sort of like gives you a little bit of roughness to it. And that tannin will, over time, coagulate. It sort of locks into one another and it sort of adheres to one another. And so if you see sediment in a bottle, oftentimes that's tannin falling out of it. But when that happens, the tannins round out and they get smoother and they get more lush and not quite so rough. I would say the tannin in this is rough. That tells me the wine needs 3 to 5 years for age. It's just going to continue to develop. It's good. It's really good. Lorene wanted me to talk real briefly about why I'm spending so much time on this wine. When we taste wine, we evaluate it and we talk about if it's, clear or not, if the acidity is low, medium, or high, if the tannins are low, medium, or high, and just all of those types of things. When you spend a lot of time talking about a wine, or you have a lot of adjectives about a wine, to us, that means it's a quality wine. If you drink a wine and you're like, yeah, it's good, I get a little bit of stone fruit out of it, or I get cherries, and that's the only thing you can say about a wine, it's probably an indication that wine is meh.
Or a lower price point.
Or a lower price point. Lower price point wines can be good, absolutely. Can be drinkable. We always like to, and we taste like 90% of the wines we bring to the shop, so we always want those wines to represent really well at the price point, for the region, the style, all those things many of you have heard me say all the time. But when you can spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about a wine and all the characteristics, and over that 10 to 15 minutes, it changes, you really know that's probably a quality wine. So somebody's asking me, which is my favorite of the 3? Love them all and can't decide. So here's the beautiful thing about wine. You don't have to have a favorite. There is absolutely no reason that you have to pick a favorite. And I'm going to talk real briefly about that. So if I'm going to drink something on an 80-degree day, it's going to be the Chardonnay. I'm going to sit on the deck. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to drink it. If we're going to have a salad first, or I'm going to drink something light, or food dictates that, I'm going to drink this. Question? Popcorn. Lorene brought up popcorn. And a lot of people saying the Cab is hands down the best one. So this is the thing with our brains. As humans, we want to judge. We want to rate. That's what we do, right? And absolutely, is the Cab like the biggest, most flavorful one? Absolutely. But if it's 80 degrees out, you're not going to drink the Cab on the deck with a salad. It just doesn't make sense. Right. And if you only have $13 to spend, you're going to drink something else. So, Chardonnay, I really like the Chard. Are there Chards that I like better? Absolutely. But I really like this. Movie night Chard. Absolutely, Sarah. Popcorn. Lorene. So if Lorene isn't super hungry, she'll be like, why don't we have Chardonnay popcorn for dinner? And that's what we have. We have Chardonnay popcorn, right? If we move to the Pinot Noir, I love Pinot Noir. If I'm going to drink something and it's just going to be the wine and it's not going to be with food, I am going to drink Pinot Noir. I'm going to drink it day in and day out. Pinots from all over the place. The various wines, how is price determined?
Oh,
Continuing on, that's a huge
big
question. Cabernet, I'm going to drink when I'm having red meat, steak, or late at night after I've had some lighter wines. This is why we open the Chard, then we drink the Pinot, then the Cab. We drink them in an order: white to red, light to heavy. So that's the order that we drink them at night too. How is price determined? So the biggest thing is using the real estate term: location, location, location. Certain places grow better grapes. Better grapes make better wine. If I can afford to buy really good quality land in Napa, you're talking $250,000 to $350,000 an acre. If I can afford to do that, I'm not going to plant inexpensive wine or inexpensive grapes. I'm going to get really good rootstock. And then I'm not going to hire a winemaker who doesn't know what they're doing. I'm going to hire a really well-qualified winemaker, and I'm going to pay him a lot of money to make really great wine. Him or her, sorry. Yes, there's a lot of fabulous women winemakers, absolutely. I'm gonna hire the best winemaker I can for the money. And then I'm not going to use cheap equipment. I'm not going to use cheap oak. I'm going to buy quality all the way across the board. Well, all of that goes into the finished bottle. Marketing, label, glass, cork, all of those things. Now, there's if you spend any amount of time on Facebook, and clearly some of you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here, and we appreciate that. You'll see there's and I'm not going to name names, but there's this company that's doing a lot of Facebook advertising, and they talk about how why they get the wines that are of equal value to all the big name blah blah blah, and that X percentage is spent on packaging. That's a bunch of hoo-ha. Don't pay attention to that. That's a marketing ploy. It really doesn't mean anything, because quality wine comes from quality vineyards made by quality winemakers and all sorts of those things. There's a huge variance. And if you yourself have $100,000 sitting around and you want to make wine, you can Google bulk wine juice from a bunch of different regions. You can buy the juice, have somebody make it, put a label on it, bottle it, and distribute it. A lot of wineries do that. But when we're talking about price, generally speaking, I look at it as cars. You can buy a used Yugo, for example, or you can buy a brand new Cadillac. They're both going to get you from point A to point B, but chances are you're going to enjoy the ride in the Cadillac a lot better than the ride in the Yugo. To me, it's a similar thing with wine. It's the similar thing with a lot of things in my life, with all of our lives. Most oftentimes, you get what you pay for. And I think that it involves wine. And that doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. You have to buy the $100 bottle. And realistically, a $100 bottle better be damn good. If a $100 bottle isn't good, somebody did something really wrong. But these wines, to me, are all solid at the price points for the regions. I love them all. I think if I'm just going to sit down and drink, my favorite is probably the Pinot. But that's because I love Pinot Noir. If I'm going to drink something on the deck, it's going to be Chardonnay. If I'm going to have something at steak or late at night, it's going to be the Cabernet. The one thing that we're missing in this lineup is a bottle of bubbles. I'm just saying.
Here, here.
Champagne, sparkling, bubbles, all of those must start with bubbles. Do I have a go-to quarantine wine or varietal?
Bubble.
Well, we've got some of the peanut gallery saying bubbles, but I'm going Pinot Noir all day long. Okay.
I'm going to interrupt because I know we said a half an hour and we're well over that. A couple quick things. We are planning on doing this next week. Our goal is to, however long we have to be at home to do this, and maybe even beyond and after, but wines will be announced tomorrow. We unfortunately, our stores are they carry different products, so we're not going to have it where you can get it at both stores. We're going to have to pick wines from one store only because we don't have duplicates at the stores. So next Monday, we will announce the wines tomorrow night. I vote Bubbles, but we'll see. Although I'm the owner, I get first choice. Oh, we have other people here voting Bubbles too. We'll pick 3 wines and do the same thing. If you want to see something, let me know, because although I get first choice, my customers probably outweigh what I want. So,
Bart, we can't ship. Sorry, but you work from home, work from your car. You can be on your phone.
Yeah,
just
you
drive
can
north.
come see us.
Yeah.
So the other thing, thank you very much. Thank you for supporting local. We are actually going to do dinner tonight. We are supporting local too. Our food just came. We are doing Chain Garden tonight. Shout out to Chain Garden. There are more places like us trying to make it. Thank you again.
I have a couple things in closing. Feel free to stick a cork in the bottle and put them in your refrigerator. I know that, Mark, you mentioned to me earlier that you're going to use your Corvin. Seal it up however you can. If you only have the cork, stick the cork in the bottle, put it in the refrigerator, store it cold. It'll last. And then just over the next few days, open them up and enjoy them. They'll be fine. The Cabernet will last the longest as far as stick the cork in it, put it in the refrigerator. You may find that it's better and more expressive tomorrow or the next day or even the next day. And the other ones, just stick the cork in them, throw them in the fridge, and chill them completely. So we want to thank you guys for joining us on this first Facebook Live tasting. We're going to do more of them. We don't know how long this craziness is going to last. I also want to thank all of you for supporting the shops over this time. We really, really, really appreciate it. So do all of our employees. So, you're right, Kelly. It won't last that long either. Cheers. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to go eat Chinese and maybe drink Pinot. A little umami, right? Cheers.